Thanksgiving is around the corner, and man, am I thankful for Saquon Barkley. The Philadelphia Eagles, at least the 2024 edition of the Philadelphia Eagles, is kind of like a boxer, where in the first quarter, in the first couple of rounds in a boxing match, you figure out what your opponent likes to do. You have a couple test punches, but then as the game wears on, you wear down your opponent and you eventually knock them out. And that's basically the formula of the 2024 Eagles, where they can be had in the first few scripted plays, and we saw the Rams move the ball quite well, especially in the first part of the first half at least. And eventually the Eagles kind of settled down. Their number one defense answered the bell and clamped down on a pretty talented Rams team, especially at the wide receiver position, and Matthew Stafford is a future Hall of Famer, but they were able to make him hold on to the ball because he's a guy that gets the ball out so fast, but the Eagles managed to sack Matthew Stafford 4 times in this game. And talking about that knockout punch, it is Saquon Barkley. I mean, Saquon Barkley takes the Eagles to a different dimension. Right after being right there with the Eagles in the first half, it was 13-7 going into halftime. On the first play of scrimmage in the second half, Saquon rips off a 70-yard touchdown run to put them up 20-7. And that was really the tone in the second half, where Saquon is going to get his 9-yard runs, but then bust out a major long gain. And it felt like the Rams were just playing catch-up drive after drive, and they had to play perfect. They had to get in Jalen's face when they were on passing downs, which they did a couple of times, but Jalen honestly navigated the pressure pretty well. And honestly, the Great Wall of Philadelphia with Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton, and Lane Johnson, I mean, that's 5 very beefy men. And to have them pave the lanes for Saquon to protect Jalen Hurts in pass protection, it's very hard for a defense not to be wearing down. I mean, to be pushed around for 3.5 quarters, eventually the floodgates will open, and it already did coming out of halftime. Well, the stamp on this game was a 72-yard run by Saquon Barkley to put him on to 255 rushing yards on the day, breaking LaShawn McCoy's rushing record in a single game, and having over 300 yards from scrimmage. Just imagine that, 300 total yards. And Saquon Barkley by himself outgained the LA Rams defense single-handedly. But again, this Eagles team, ever since the bye week, is not just a Saquon run-first team. I mean, Jalen Hurts with A.J. Brown without Devontae Smith have been great. Devontae's been battling a hamstring injury, and I thought it was very wise to just rest him, not have him risk any tweaks with the hamstring muscle. We know how finicky those can be. It's a cross-country flight, so we knew it was going to be a heavy dose of A.J. Brown. Well, A.J. Brown is just so dangerous for this Eagles team. I mean, last year against this Rams team, he tore them up, and yet again he did so against the Rams this year against a similar secondary. AJ just changes things as well. I mean, when AJ is in the lineup this year, the Eagles are actually unbeaten. They have not lost a single game with AJ Brown on the field this year. And that changes the game entirely for this Eagles team. And talking about the defense now, I mean, from all 3 levels, we've seen such dominant play. Jalen Carter is wrecking games, eating up double team blocks, freeing up his guys like Josh Sweat or Brandon Graham or Milton Williams for a couple sacks, and that's an altruistic moment for a guy that is a generational talent at the defensive tackle position, but really doing the dirty work so other guys can succeed while he's taking up those blocks. The linebacker position, you have Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond. 2 guys have been a dynamic duo at the linebacking position, something we haven't seen out of Philadelphia in quite some time. In the secondary, the star rookie duo with Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who did a really good job on Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And I mean, there was a sequence where Cooper DeJean was on Cooper Kupp, and it was a classic kind of in and out slot pattern, but Cooper DeJean was right there stride for stride with Kupp. And in another sequence, I saw him guarding Nacua and just played the ball so well, getting his helmet in the way of Nakua's hands so he couldn't make a play on the ball. And Quinion Mitchell just takes a whole side of the field out of the equation. There was just so many times that Matthew Stafford just couldn't even utilize whatever side that Quinion was on because he knew that that guy was going to be blanketed and basically taken out of the game. And even when you throw his way, the gains are very minimal, and if not, it gets to be a pass deflection. And yet again, I think Quinion Mitchell is absolutely worth the Defensive Rookie of the Year. The coverage stats are there. He just needs a couple of interceptions to get the kind of recognition that he deserves. Right now, Jared Verse has 4.5 sacks, and that is what defensive linemen really make their money on. So if defensive backs get paid for making interceptions, well, it's time for Quinion Mitchell to do so, and then he should be a runaway favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. But credit again to Vic Fangio. I mean, to go against a talented offense like the LA Rams, who are coming back home and they can really do some damage at SoFi Stadium. But I think the Eagles are really humming on all cylinders and being one of the hottest teams in the NFC. Now, of course, sad news for Brandon Graham. I mean, Philadelphia Eagles great, who unfortunately tore his triceps in this game against the Rams, and he's probably done for the season. But if this is his last game as a Philadelphia Eagle, I mean, he's been hinting at retirement for a few seasons, but it really seems like this is it for him. What a way to go out. He has 2 tackles for loss, a pass breakup, 3 quarterback hits on his fellow 2009 draft classmate in Matthew Stafford, and sacked Stafford another time. And with that sack, he moves to 3rd all-time in Eagles history, moving ahead of Clyde Simmons. He had the most important single play in Eagles history with that strip sack on Tom Brady in Super Bowl 52, and never quite lived up to the first round pedigree, but he was always a gamer, always competed, and was a leader, and is a leader in this Eagles locker room. And despite his absence, this is the first time he suffered a season-ending injury. In 2021, he tore his Achilles in 2 weeks into the season, but this time, I mean, this could be it for Brandon Graham. But he did say, in not really a somber mood in the locker room, that the mission isn't done. And just like what happened 7 years ago when Carson Wentz went down against these very Rams, the Eagles rallied that we're more than this guy, that we can rally around the team and go on a run. And I think the Eagles, this edition of the Eagles, can do so as well, because they have a lot of guys that really look up to Brandon Graham, and I think he will always have a voice in this locker room, whether he's on the field or not. So at this point, he'll be more of a coach, Brandon Graham, at this point, but certainly is something to look out for, because it's a huge loss in the locker room and on the field for the Eagles defense. Saquon's addition to the Philadelphia Eagles is like Babe Ruth when he left the Boston Red Sox to join the New York Yankees, or when Kevin Durant joined the Golden State Warriors. And we're seeing that him being paired behind this great Philadelphia offensive line and this entire team that does absolutely buy into him, he's having one of the most successful years at the running back position, a position that has been undervalued in recent years. Well, the likes of Barkley, CMC, and Derrick Henry have absolutely put the running back position back in center front and focus, that they are absolutely valuable pieces to an NFL roster. And to be honest, the Eagles would be in an entirely different state if it wasn't thanks to Saquon Barkley. He is the engine of this offense, and there's been times that Saquon has individually won the Eagles games this season, games that the Eagles had no business in, namely that Saints game early on in the season. He rips off a big gain and turns the tide in the Eagles' favor, and they never let up since. And you know that a team like the Eagles that wear down on you, and eventually knock you out with long runs that we're seeing now from Saquon, that they're just so lethal, especially come the postseason time. And Saquon, en route to having 255 yards on the ground and, like I said, over 300 yards from scrimmage, he is now not only leading the league in rushing, but he is on pace to potentially breaking Eric Dickerson's rushing record. Now, he does have that extra game of note, but what Saquon has done for the Eagles has been monumental. And for him to just gel with the Eagles so well, I mean, he was a former division rival, but it's been a seamless fit in the year one as a Philadelphia Eagle. You could see him be the first guy to run up and congratulate Kenny Gainwell's first rushing touchdown of the year. You know, Kenny Gainwell has been here in Philadelphia for a few years, since 2021, and has never complained about being a backup running back. He was the backup to Miles Sanders, a Pro Bowler, a backup to DeAndre Swift, another Pro Bowler, and now Saquon Barkley, who is possibly a first-team All-Pro caliber running back. And a lot of that eats into his production, but whenever the bell sounds for his services to come onto the field, Kenny answers that bell. No problems in the locker room, no complaining, nothing. I'm very happy that this team is very much centered around the team rather than individual commodities. And now they're just really gelling as a whole. I mean, they're arguably one of the hottest teams in the league, and I'm really excited to see how this season unfolds. I mean, it definitely feels like there's something special brewing, but take it week by week. I mean, this team has to respond. Yet again, they have a tough game against Baltimore on the road, but after that, they don't have to get on another plane. I mean, they're going to be at the crib in Philadelphia for the last 5 weeks of the season.